What's up, y'all? It's Izzy and we are back with another So You Think You Want to Build Skoolie video. How original. I know there's going to be a ton of these. A ton. Mucho. So I have no script today to figure out how to do this video, so I've come to two conclusions. Either one, I'm getting way too confident, or two, I hate myself. And it's probably going to be the latter when I'm editing this video. But today we're going to talk about all the steps that I took to prep my floor for painting, sealing, all of the above. Yeah. So let's get into it, and I realize that I don't have all the things around me, so I have to get up and go get them. Where shall we begin? Where all good things begin. I still don't know where to begin. So one of the first things that I did, of course, well, this probably wasn't actually in order, but one of the first things that I recommend doing is sweeping out your floors, of course, and then pressure washing them down really good. And this probably works best if you have if you're on a flat surface. I was not on a flat surface when I did my pressure washing, but there are holes. If you strip the entire floor, there are gaps at the wheel well, at least in my bus. I feel like this is probably more of a common thing, where the water will seep through and leave the bus, so you don't have to worry about it getting trapped. It got trapped in my bus, and we did put a hole through the floor. But it's okay, because it was a rust spot, and it was going to have to be patched over anyways, so it's fine. Totally. Then what I did next is I went in on all of those holes in the floor, whether it be the big ones that the bolts came out of, or the smaller ones where the screws came out of that were holding the side pieces that make the middle of the eye, like that middle runner, look like fancy per se. And on the screw holes that are on the curved piece with bobber thingy on the wheel well, there were holes there. Yes, all of these terms are technical terms. You should refer to them as such from this day forward. So I went to those holes and I took some citrus strip, which this looks really gross because I accidentally left it sitting out here and it got a little hot. But this is really great stuff. I mean, the residue, the glue that was left on the floor, you put this on here for a couple minutes, you just paint it on with a paintbrush, and bam, it's gone. I think they even make this in spray stuff, which would be good. Now, I didn't put this on the entire floor, but if you're dedicated, it would probably not hurt to put this on the entire floor. So, another one of those instances, do as I say, not as I do. Once the citrus strip had set, I went to those places and scraped them off with the scrapers. What do you scrape with? A scraper. In all honesty, I think I actually used one of the crowbars to get all of that off. Once that was off and cleaned up really good, I took, what would you know? Flex Seal. Now, this is not sponsored, but Phil Swift, if you would like to sponsor my videos or one of my videos, I could make a whole grand video on it. I don't doubt it's ever gonna happen, not in a million years. But I used this to spray over all the holes just to coat like the interior, like, you know, the metal is like this thick, so the part of the hole that wasn't directly on the surface or directly on the bottom, the edges of that hole, I wanted to coat with some sort of sealant, so that's what I sprayed on top of it. Now for some of the smaller screw holes that were in the floor and on the wheel wells, this actually did the job in covering them up. You could get like the cheap brand too, you don't have to get this kind. It's kind of, my dad swears by the cheaper brand and not this brand, so do what you will with that information. So now we're going to play the game of Izzy Try Not to Move Your Hands, which is not very easy for me because I like to move my hands a lot. But once I sealed those holes and let them dry with the Flex Seal, I went over and cut some of this metal duct tape. I cut it into little pieces like this right here, and then just peeled the backside off of it and pressed it down. This is made to use, of course, with ductwork and stuff, but this is supposed to form a watertight seal bond with the surface that you apply it to. I think maybe it's specifically like metal surfaces. Yeah, I put this on the outside of my bus over the holes that need to be welded too, and it's super sticky, like it's stuck to this bag right now. I can't get it off, so that's just the way that I sealed up the holes on the ground. You don't have to seal them up that way. Other people seal them up a different way. Now, for the bigger holes, that were bigger than the bolt holes that couldn't just be easily like sealed up. The ones that had to be like actually sealed for a long way. I got some of the flex paste because I needed some like builder grade stuff, and I saw this advertising on TV and I said, huh, that kind of sounds like something that I could use. So this is what I put in the cracks at the wheel wells and the cracks at the front of the bus. My dad is home. This is great. And of course, being the person I am, I had to apply it with this oversized spatula and make the work harder for me. Definitely recommend you get a different scraper spatula thingy to apply it with, one that will actually fit inside the can. This when you have to turn it aside. Not very conducive. But I actually have a clip showing me use that up front here, so I'll put that in here because I didn't put it anywhere else. So my other videos kind of showed how I did the other ones up there, but I'm filling up this gap right here between the two pieces, the two plates of the floor, because you can actually see all the way through to the ground. There you can see. So I'm just going to fill that in with some of the Flex Seal putty that I have, or paste. I just used this around the wheel wells last time. And decided since I was filling in this crack and already had it out, I just go ahead and use it to fill in the couple of holes that was here instead of going through the whole process that I went through before. So all those spots that were really rusty, and even the ones that were kind of like rusted out, I went ahead and applied this just for the kicks and giggles. But I got this off of Amazon. It was kind of inexpensive, like versus the others, like this brand, and it works really well. Like I found that it worked really well. The big thing is that you want to like clean off the area that you're going to do before you put it down, and it doesn't have to be like immaculately clean because sometimes that's impossible, but just, you know, wipe it off really good before you put this down. And I had no problems with it. Afterwards, my stepdad did go over on mine and like clean it all up with a wire brush, clean all the rust up, and you probably should do that, but of course I used a wire brush, but I didn't use one on the grinder attachment, which is what my stepdad did because it sparks a lot. So I didn't do that, but I'm really glad he did that for me. It was really nice of him, and I would recommend that if you aren't too skittish or you have someone to do that for you in your bus, do that before you go with sealing the floor. Now on the places that were just too rusted out to like actually seal up or do anything with, I did have to put like some sort of plate over the floor. Originally the idea was to weld it, but that seemed like such a big problem because one, I don't have a 240 outlet outside. My uncle does have a welder, but that would mean I have to drive it all the way up the hill to his house, and I didn't want there to be any mishaps. Like if something happened to his welder, I would feel really bad. So what we ended up deciding on was just taking and riveting it into place, like riveting some metal over top of it into place. Well, I also didn't want to go through the hunt to find sheet metal because I feel like that's like one of those things that's just a really hard thing to figure out. Like, it's not my forte, so it would take me a while to figure out what I needed, and I would ask other people what I needed and they wouldn't be able to tell me right off, and it'd just be a whole fiasco of back and forth, like, I don't want to spend money on this kind of thing. So what we ended up deciding on was taking some of the ceiling panels, or one of the ceiling panels actually, and cutting it down to fit over the holes. And you can see that in my floor preparation video. And so my stepdad was nice enough, he came up and he fixed it, he cut everything so I didn't have to, you know, be in the sparks. And he actually even welded a piece together specifically to put in the corner where there was a weird hole because he's extra thorough and he wanted to be sure that it wasn't going to leak on me in the future. And I will link a video down below for any of you guys who are curious as to kind of like the method we used when riveting into place. I didn't show him any of these videos, but he did it the same way that they did it, or very similar at least. But basically, a little short rundown. Once we got the metal cut down to size, he dry fitted it, and he had to bend a lot of pieces to make sure that they were right, so he would just make sure that it was all lining up correctly, because you want it to be as close as you can get it to the actual shape of the hole or the curvature, depending on where you're putting it in the bus. And then he drilled some holes through the metal and into the bus, and those are kind of like the marker holes, the holes that he would use to line up everything. And then he took some silicone, put it around the edges, and put it back on top of it. And then what he would do is he would take rivets, which this is what rivets look like for anybody that doesn't know. I shall get one out. He took the rivets and he would just line those up and put them into the hole so they would be sticking out like this. And then you take this handy dandy little tool here, and once you put it in here, it'll latch on to this end piece here and kind of push this part in, and as it pushes it in, it expands it, so it kind of pulls the two pieces together even closer and gives them like a really tight fit to them, a really good seal. So that's an option if you don't have a welder, or you don't know someone who can weld, but you need to patch up a hole in the bottom of your bus that isn't too extensive. You could do that. And then once all that was done, I did take some Flex Seal and spray around the edges, although Flex Seal and silicone don't really mix, so you can kind of, you know, you don't have to do that. That was just an extra step that I did. And so now it was time for the paint. So I had read a lot about different paints, different sealers to use on the floor to help stop the rust and keep the rust from going on. I don't guess there's really like a right or a wrong way. It's just a lot of people use this, and this was readily available to me. So I just picked up a gallon of the Rust-Oleum paint. I got it in the black so I could see where I was painting. And I wanted to do the red like the rest of the primer in the bus, like you can see a little bit right here. But they didn't have the red sampling, so I had to go with the black, which is not bad. I think this one actually has rust stopping qualities in it, but really what it is just a glorified, I shouldn't say that. Really what it is, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to regret it instantly, is like a glorified oil-based enamel paint. But I'm sure it has good qualities to it. But you know, you could do some research and figure out what works best for you. I know a lot of people use this. This is what I used. I can't tell you how all of this holds up because one, my bus has been sitting here, it's not been riding on the road, and two, likelihood of me figuring out how it works would mean ripping up my entire floor, so you're always taking a gamble when you build a bus. But that is all the tips and tricks that I have for you when sealing your floor. If you have any more helpful hints and tips, please leave those down below, and let's create our good little Skoolie pod going on here. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date with what I'm doing on the bus, and if you care to know more about my opinion or how I did things in my bus and you want to know more about that, or you care to know more about that, then you can also hit that subscribe button and the notification bell down below so that you will know when I post. But I post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 o'clock. If you don't like getting notifications, like I don't like getting notifications, you can just remember that. And I have bonus videos on Thursday, which I do believe that this is a Thursday video, or it might be a Friday video, and yesterday's video was a Thursday video, which if that is the case, go check that one out too. That was interesting. Either way it goes, it's tools that you'll need to start the Skoolie. Yeah, that's what it is. That was way too long of a ramble. Thank you guys so much for watching and putting up with me, and I will see you all next time. Bye.